Welcome, viewers, to our deep dive into the unconventional reign of Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, a leader who has created ripples in the political landscape, not merely by his tenure, but by his unique approach to leadership. Abiy Ahmed, the man at the helm of Ethiopia's political machine, is known for a leadership style that is anything but ordinary. He has been in power for 6 years, and during this time, his self-identification as a king, Moses, and a transcendent being has marked him as an outlier among Ethiopia's past leaders. In the scenes to come, we will be exploring the unique aspects of Abiy's reign. We'll delve into the unusual phenomenon of his self-proclaimed titles, scrutinize his claims of unprecedented public engagement, and examine his leadership through the lens of Ethiopia's recent history. We'll juxtapose his rule with the eras of Colonel Mengistu Hailemariam and Meles Zenawi, shedding light on the unseen parallels that exist under Part 2. So join us as we unravel the enigma of Ethiopia's most unusual leader. Let's embark on this intriguing journey, starting with the unique phenomenon of Abiy's self-proclamation in our next scene. Part 1. Consider this. Have you ever heard of a leader who refers to himself as a king, Moses, and transcendent all at once? This might sound like a riddle, but it's a reality for the people of Ethiopia, who have been led for the past 6 years by a man who has claimed these titles and more for himself. His name is Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Abiy's self-proclamation isn't just a departure from the norm, it's an unprecedented phenomenon in the history of Ethiopian leadership. It's not the fact that he's completed 6 years in office that has raised eyebrows, but rather the grandiosity with which he refers to himself. According to him, he's not just the Prime Minister, but a king. Moses, like Jesus, a transcendent being. You see, in Ethiopia, a country with a rich history of monarchy, no leader has ever made such claims. Even the most powerful of monarchs, Haile Selassie, referred to himself and his government as us. Mengistu Hailemariam, a leader known for his strong personality, always used we when discussing government matters. Meles Zenawi, Hailemariam Desalegn, none of them ever used the terms I, myself, and me when it came to governance. But then came Abiy, who, 6 years ago, shattered unspoken tradition. His constant use of I, myself, and me has become a unique feature of his government. He's repeatedly claimed that there has never been a leader in Ethiopia's history who engages with the public and participates in the community as he does. But is this claim accurate? Haven't there been leaders who sat on rocks to discuss issues with farmers, who traveled from village to educate, who attended weddings and funerals, and spent time with their people? So what sets Prime Minister Abiy apart from his predecessors? Is it his self-proclaimed titles or something more? As we delve deeper into his 6-year tenure, we'll explore these questions and more. Stay with us as we unravel the enigma of Ethiopia's most unusual leader. Next, we'll look at PM Abiy's claim of unprecedented public engagement and community participation claim. Stay tuned. Prime Minister Abiy claims an unprecedented level of public engagement and participation. Is this a new phenomenon in Ethiopian leadership? Let's delve into this. Prime Minister Abiy has often stated that there are no leaders in Ethiopia's history who engage with the public and participate in the community as he does. Is this actually a first? When we look back at the annals of Ethiopian leadership, we find a long tradition of leaders who not only ruled but also interacted directly with their people. They sat on rocks, engaged in discussions with farmers, traveled from village to village with sticks to educate, attended weddings and funerals, and spent time with their constituents. Emperor Haile Selassie, for instance, was known for his regular interactions with the people. He was often seen visiting rural areas, engaging with the population, and even participating in traditional ceremonies. Similarly, Mengistu Hailemariam, despite the tumultuous times his rule was associated with, had his own version of public engagement. He used to visit the front lines, interact with soldiers, and even address mass rallies. Meles Zenawi, too, was known for his public engagements. He often used to participate in public debates, answer questions from the press, and was also seen visiting farmers, development projects, and interacting with the people affected by these projects. So if these past leaders had their own ways of engaging with the public, what makes Prime Minister Abiy's approach unique? Is it the scale, the style, or is it something else altogether? So, let's set aside these questions and move into his assertion of being the first. What does he mean? Is it a sign of his vision and innovation for Ethiopia? Or is it a sign of undermining the leaders who came before him? We'll find the answers we're seeking. But our journey into the exploration of his assertion of I, myself, and me is far from over. All the dates are according to Ethiopia calendar. In 2011, during a gathering of teachers from diverse regions, questions arose challenging the Prime Minister. The teachers raised questions about when the Prime Minister would restore peace and development like before, construct roads and houses like past leaders, and so on. Many questions were not posed in the manner the Prime Minister desired. The teachers' approach was unusual for the Prime Minister, who used to receive only praises in his meetings with other community groups. He struggled to contain his frustration and lashed out at the crowd. It had only been 10 months since the Prime Minister came to power in 2011, and the strong questions from the teachers were comparing him with the previous leaders, all framed with "like before," subtly contrasting the Prime Minister's work with that of his predecessors. The Prime Minister bitterly stated, "The general problem among the Ethiopian people is that they don't know whom to compare to whom and when." Continuing on, he reiterated, "The general problem among the Ethiopian people is that they don't know who and whom to compare and when." The Prime Minister said, "For example, those who led Ethiopia, how long did they lead? If you want to compare each of them with me, then you need to ask what Emperor Haile Selassie did within 10 months of his reign. What did Mengistu do within 10 months of his rule? What did Meles do within 10 months of his leadership? What did Hailemariam Desalegn do within 10 months after he was appointed?" Disregarding the fact that 120 million people are deemed ignorant about whom and when to compare, let's also set aside requesting the Prime Minister to respect and value millions of citizens who may not know about his premiership. And, instead, let's focus on the comparison formula outlined by Prime Minister Abiy. Let's use his approach and challenge his assertion that the Ethiopian people don't know whom and when to compare. Let's compare the first 5 years of the previous leaders he mentioned with his own 5-year term for a fair comparison. Next, we'll compare PM Abiy's first 5 years in office with past Ethiopian leaders. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has been at the helm of Ethiopian leadership for 6 years, making the bold assertion of I, myself and me. Let's explore this claim in depth by comparing his initial 5-year term with the first 5 years of Emperor Haile Selassie, an iconic figure in Ethiopian history, who assumed power in 1923. After being crowned as the King of Ethiopia, Emperor Haile Selassie embarked on a journey to transform the nation. The king abolished the inhumane punishment of amputation, introduced improved judicial procedures, enacted a penal code that eradicated arbitrary imprisonments. For the first time in Ethiopia's history, a constitution was introduced under the king's reign. The king also abolished the slave trade, eliminating patriarchal rulers and replacing them with government-appointed individuals. Emphasizing the significance of military education, the king opened a military training school. All these measures were aimed at fostering peace, order, and rule of law in the country. In his autobiography, the king justified the measures, emphasizing the importance of adhering to the law and ensuring the administration of justice exclusively through the judiciary for the creation of one united Ethiopia family. The king also banned extrajudicial punishments and dismissed summary judgments. Viewing the people as one united family, the king expressed his dedication to establishing a constitution that governed everyone under the rule of law. In comparing Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's first 5 years in office with Emperor Haile Selassie's reign, a stark contrast emerges. Abiy Ahmed extended the EPRDF's parliamentary term beyond 5 years, contrary to the constitution's provisions, engaging in an interpretation act that favored his continuation in power, a move prohibited by the constitution. During Abiy's period, Ethiopia grappled not with law but with anarchy. Citizens suffered through beatings and mob attacks, while ethnic groups were labeled with divisive rhetoric like daytime hyenas, fueling animosity and dividing communities, leading to marches against each other. There was even an instance whereby an innocent man was crucified upside down in Shashamene, Oromia region. Contrastingly, Emperor Haile Selassie's reign marked significant introductions, which can be labeled as being the first. The emperor introduced airplanes for the first time in Ethiopia's history and expanded services like the telephone and postal systems across provinces outside of Addis Ababa, revolutionizing transportation and communication. The emperor also introduced cars and bicycles widely. The emperor took over a very backward country with only one high school and one automobile. The emperor brought electricity to cities beyond Addis Ababa and transformed education, expanding the only high school, publishing foreign language materials, and establishing modern educational facilities in every province, impacting thousands of citizens positively. In contrast, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's term saw devastating consequences. His actions led to the destruction of thousands of schools in regions like Tigray, Amhara, and Afar, disrupting education for nearly 20 million students. Emperor Haile Selassie's leadership during challenging times when Liege Ayasu supporters posed opposition and conflict. The emperor did not fight a war that cost millions of lives and didn't invite a foreign army. The emperor also showcased his courage as he personally marched to the front lines and participated in battles like the Maichewu War, without sparking internal conflicts that cost millions of lives. As we reflect on these historical narratives, it's essential to evaluate leadership legacies objectively, considering the impact on development, peace, and societal well-being. Let's now delve into the next era, exploring the leadership of Colonel Mengistu Hailemariam in Part 2.